All right, episode 11 of the Juicebox Junkies. Here with me today is Matt, Uncle Kunkel. Me and you, Matt, for the first few minutes.
About
Uh,
time.
Two of the OG, and maybe Brian will join us if he gets time on this very religious day for him. He said he'd join us in a few minutes if he could. So we finally have games to talk about, Matt. We have real games, not spring training games with a bunch of minor leaguers in it. Real games with a bunch of major leaguers in it, and really cool first six games. Matter of fact, we have some specific topics we want to talk about, but just give me your overall view of the first two series: four against the Angels in Anaheim, two in Arizona against the Diamondbacks. Still got three more to go on the road trip, but let's talk about the first six. Your impressions.
Well, I try not to get too excited about the early part of the season, but what the Astros did show is, that they're still in the top five teams in the MLB. They have the talent to make it back, and I think what you want in the first part of the season is just don't put yourself in a hole. Don't come off of this 9 game road trip 2-7 and looking like you're tripping over yourselves. Just steady the ship. It's a long season. And I think they've done this. I mean, we'll see how they do up in Seattle. I might change my tone if they get swept up there, but spurts of some greatness. The offense hasn't really kicked in yet, but hey, 4-2 on the road. I think April's going to be a tough month. They're going to be on the road a lot. Let's just stay above 500, and then I think by the second half of the season, the Astros should be in good shape.
Yeah, Brian Dunleavy joins us here. Looks like from his car. Dedication.
Nice. Is that a Civic? Is that a
On the road.
minivan?
This would be, of course, the minivan.
All right. Well, you got enough kids to have like a couple of those things in the garage, I think. So we're just talking about the first six games, getting Matt's take on the first six games as a whole. Just kind of general. We got some specific topics we're going to get into, but just kind of general thoughts on the first six games.
Well, I think for
Go
the
ahead,
first six, I think it was it was a good start to the season. Although I think Dusty left his imprint on some randomness that I don't know if I've seen any other team do a similar thing with their lineup and their rotation and stuff. So I think that's I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong, but I don't know of any other team that played with the lineup and things as much as Dusty does. It seems like that's like his game. Instead of taking up crossword puzzles or Sudoku, he looks like he wants to play with the lineup and see how many different things he can put together in a lineup at one time. And I don't know if anybody would have put money on or ever predicted that somebody like Nico Goodrum would hit in the third spot in the lineup. That just never, and just to put it out there, I don't think anybody in their right mind would ever do that, except for Dusty Baker, who is, I don't know if he's in his right mind or not. But with that said, a bench player hitting in the 3-hole, which is reserved for the best hitter in the lineup, is baffling.
Let history record that 2 minutes and 43 seconds into the podcast, and about 16 seconds after he jumped on, Brian bashes Dusty Baker. Of course, I have similar thoughts as to both of you. You don't want to go to the slow start. 4-2 is great. Really hard to win 4 games in a row against a major league team, and they fell short in Anaheim by 1. Really disappointed by yesterday. You're going to have those games in the season. It's going to happen. Just hope it doesn't happen too often, and hope you don't miss something by 1 game because of losing to Arizona in Game 6 of the season. I agree with you, Brian. I'm not quite as hard on Dusty, though I like him a lot less since he started platooning Chaz in this situation. But I agree with you 100% on the lineup. I mean, resting Bregman on the third day of the season, look, if they had a 7-game stretch at the start of the season, okay. They had a 4-game stretch, an off day, 2 more games, and another off day. It's just baffling to me. Then Altuve. when they talked to him, when the media talked to Dusty about resting Bregman, he said, "Well, you don't rest Altuve because he doesn't really let you. He doesn't want to come out." And I was like, "Well, A, I didn't know he had a chance. I don't think Bregman would want to come out either. And B, you rested Altuve the next day, so it doesn't. He's just talking noise up front and doing what he wants to do, like you said, just messing around with the lineup. Just it's baffling. It is baffling to me too. You don't know what you're going to get. To the players, I don't know. Do they know? Maybe they know more than us. But one thing we talked about there, Matt, was Bregman getting off to a good start. Maybe Dusty knows something, and if he stays healthy all year, I'll be happy to let him sit, 10 or 12 games. But Alex Bregman looks like he can run, catch, throw, and most importantly, hit. American League Player of the Week, the first week of the season, 333 average in the first 6 games. Your take on AB2 for the first 6?
He looked good, particularly out in Anaheim. He looked like he had just really good control of the plate. He wasn't taking any bad swings. He didn't look like he was missing his swings. I mean, he barreled a few balls. He looks like he was running really good. I mean, that we were joking about that. Every time he's trying to beat out a short hit to first base, I'd rather him take the out than pull a hammy and miss a month. We all know his greatness. In 18 and 19, he was terrific. 19, arguably, he should have been the MVP if Mike Trout didn't have the name Mike Trout. With no Carlos Correa, we're not as deep as we've been. We probably need the best of Alex Bregman. So I like the idea of some caution for him resting. I don't know if first 6 games of the season merit that, but hey, I gotta say I haven't seen him hit this well in a while. Last year he kind of faded. Obviously, he's probably dealing with some injuries. This is the version of Bregman we like. I think all the Astro fans would agree.
Yep. 333, 7 for 21, 2 homers, 7 RBIs in the first 6 games. Brian, your take on A-Breg 2?
Yeah, I same as Matt. I think he's off to a great start. He's looking great on the field. I think I have no idea what on earth the break after 2 games in a row was. I go back to his earlier statement during spring training where they played their first full game of spring training, and Dusty's comments afterwards were, "Well, I got to make sure the guys stay hydrated and are feeling good and rested." And I'm thinking that was probably what Dusty's doctor told him rather than what the players need to do. I mean, they're professional athletes. They know how to stay hydrated. They can drink their Gatorade and their other things. I mean, geez, we're talking about guys who paid millions of dollars to play baseball.
Yeah. I was going to say,
so they don't need to. They're not worried about 90-degree heat.
I was going to say,
yeah,
he's treating them like the 9-year-olds in T-ball.
Yeah.
Make sure they have granola and bananas. It's kind of strange. Right. I'm waiting for the orange slices like at the soccer halftime you used to get when you were a kid. But I almost want to say that he would have even better numbers if he didn't have that 3rd day off, because he had 2 games that were great. The first 2 games in a row he had 2 home runs going into that, and then he gets a day off. It's like, man, he almost messed up his mojo a little bit because
okay, I think we lost you, Brian. I think we lost Brian. So I'm gonna drop him and he'll come back to us. But we still got a good Dusty Baker rant in the first 3 minutes. So that was classic. That was classic. And so let's go on to talk about Jeremy Pena. A really big surprise as far as I'm concerned. I was not expecting this. Now he's had 2 games with multiple hits and 2 games with no hits, but he's fielded much better than I ever expected. He's swung the bat better than I expected. The one thing I'll say is not everybody, I hate when people do that, a lot of people rave about Pena's arm. I don't see it. Now, maybe I'm comparing it to Correa, and that's unfair, right? Because nobody has the arm from shortstop like Correa. He's done well on average. He's had some up and downs at the plate. The first couple at bats look horrible, but whatever. It's a 162 game season. He's hitting the ball, and he hit a home run, and he's doing really well. He's exceeding my expectations so far. Matt Kunkel, early take on Jeremy Pena.
He's been terrific. If you want, I'm sure Dusty will start Nico Goodrum at shortstop for a few days, and then you'd be like, hey, yeah, he's got a pretty good arm. No, he's been terrific. The one game where he had the home run with his parents being interviewed was pretty awesome. That was probably the highlight of the season so far. He seems to be like a pretty good influence on the team. Seems to be a hard worker. He's definitely showed up. Maybe Click and crew were onto something when they didn't want to sign Correa to that big deal because they knew how good this guy was. He's kind of showing it. Let's see how the pitchers adjust. You mentioned he's had a couple multi-hit games and a couple overs. Let's see how it happens. The dog days of the season, pitchers pick up on what they're good at, what they're not good at. Let's see how he adjusts. But again, just like Bregman, listen. He's not off to a slow start. He's looking good. He's 24. He looks pretty spry. He looks like he's got the energy. I'm excited. I was worried that he'd be a dud, and then we'd be looking at Carlos Correa hitting all those bombs up in Minneapolis at the Target Field or wherever it's called, and we'd be feeling bad about ourselves. But hey, another good start.
From the first game, I guess those were sliders he was missing by 2 or 3 feet, it looked like to me. But like you said, maybe he'll adjust. Brian, your take on Jeremy Pena's first 6 games as an Astro?
Yeah, I like it. He's coming in hot from the spring training that he had, which is he's off to a great start hitting wise. I think he's done very well at the plate, and we'll see. Like Matt said, we'll see if next month or the month after it's the same story. If once we get through, teams for a second, third, fourth time, and see if there's any adjustments there, and if he can adjust to it too, because I think adjustments happen on both sides. And if you're him, hopefully he's listening to those veteran guys and making those adjustments. It seems like he's getting along great with Altuve. So hopefully he's always got a bug in his ear to try and coach him up and get him to where he needs to be that professional. But just as you said, Marty, too, the defense is not it's not the same level as Carlos, and I don't think it's fair to say it would ever be the same as Carlos. It made me a little sad, like Matt mentioned, when we had that third decker shot that Carlos hit. That was just an absolute bomb. But then to follow up with that, he hosed a guy from halfway into left field on a relay at home with the typical Carlos cannon. So we haven't gotten that from Pena, but everything else with the glove seems like he's in a good spot. But I agree, Morty. I haven't seen the arm. And I think he's comparing him to several, not just Carlos Correa, but several other major leaguers. I don't think he's at their level of arm strength yet. I think he's average major leaguer arm strength, which is not bad. Average major leaguer. A lot of people would kill to be an average major leaguer arm strength. So it's not a bad thing, but he's definitely not. He's not going to be Carlos Correa getting guys in the hole. From in the hole and just tossing it across the field with ease. I think he's gonna have to get himself into position more to make those plays rather than to be able to make those more acrobatic throws and stuff like Carlos. But he's great so far, and hopefully he keeps it up.
It's going to be interesting to keep track of the old outs above average and those defensive metrics between those two. So that'll be intriguing as the season goes on. Look, until last night when I jinxed Chas McCormick in center field on Twitter, as I was quickly reminded, by the way. I think most people realized didn't make a difference in the game, right? It was just that I jinxed his perfect record in the outfield. Center field has been a pleasant surprise. Now, I love Chaz. We know I love half of this duo, but we also know I'm not high on the other half of the duo. And I will say this loud and clear for everybody listening and you two guys. Jose Siri has played really, really well. Scares the crap out of me every time he catches the ball. But Tucker's starting to do some of that too. I'm not sure what the catching the pop up of foot off the ground is all about. Um, but but I think he lost that one. I'm kind of giving Tucker a hard time. But Siri could make the most routine play scare the crap out of me, right? And Chaz is out there; he's just going to catch it, maybe even with two hands, like they used to do when I played, right? But not Siri. But anyway, Siri has played really well. Chaz has played really well. So I'm thinking Jake Myers is going to get traded. No, just joking. What's your guys' take on the center field position without Jake, just Chaz and Siri in the first 6 games? Matt.
I mean, this is probably what Dusty wanted, right? He wanted guys showing out and saying, I want that center field job. And it seems like in their own ways, Siri and McCormick have been great. You could argue they've been the 2 best hitters, not named Alex Bregman. It's going to get tough if they keep playing like this, because then, I mean, you're not going to take out Tucker, you're not going to take out Brantley. Who's going to get the lion's share of those at bats? Who's going to get the lion's share of those starts leading up to Jake Myers' return? I think it's going to be very fascinating when he's back. And I mean, I don't even know how Pedro Leon's doing. I think that's going to be a conversation that keeps rumbling and rumbling and rumbling. We have an embarrassment of riches at one position.
Well, I keep saying this. Chaz can play all 3 outfield positions. That's why I'm holding on to Chaz. He already has this year, I think. I think he's played in the right field. So that's why I'm holding on to Chaz so hard, because I'm fearful of Siri somewhere else. But Matt, you're absolutely right. Siri at 455, Chaz at 438. Early in the season, Chaz has a couple of multi-hit games, stolen base, just moving up, scoring the winning run, doing all those type of things that he has to do with his skill set to keep playing, because we know who Dusty favors, right? And if it's even close, it's going to be Siri. Brian, your take on the center field position so far?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Siri has surprised, I think, anybody. If anybody's watched Siri play in the past, I think he's hitting above his weight, which is to say that not that he's a great hitter, but he's hitting more than I think a lot of people would have picked. So, I think that's a good start for him. But I will leave the caveat that they do put him in very, very favorable positions when he's hitting. I mean, he's hitting against lefties. So, great. I can hit against anybody that's on the opposite side too. That doesn't mean much. That just means that I'm decent at hitting guys that are throwing across the plate towards my bat, as opposed to, the opposite. So, in that regards, I'd love to see them swap. I'd love to see Siri in the box against righties and Chaz against lefties. And I bet Chaz would be just about the same, if not better, in the box against lefties. But I also would put Chaz in, I'd take him out. I'd put Siri in over him if there's a guy that throws a lot of junk, because I don't think Chaz is I don't think he's up to the challenge with the junk, but, give Siri a chance, and we'll see if Siri can step up to the plate for that. But defensively, he hasn't screwed up. Siri hasn't screwed up, and Chaz, except for his, I think he was trying to catch it and throw the ball at the same time in left field last game. Besides that play, he hasn't screwed up either. So it's the tight race, and I'd love to see. I think we talked about this maybe a month ago. I'd love to see both of them have their stocks, go through the roof, and we can use them as trade bait sooner rather than later when Myers gets back. Because it seems to me that potentially, although again I don't believe what the Astros say, that Myers could be back sooner rather than later. They didn't put him on the 60-day, so we'll see.
Well, I wonder if these two guys continue to play well, if they'll not rush him back. Now, we're making a whole lot out of 6 games, 6 more games down the road they could be batting 125 each, right? Very easily with the hole in Chaz's swing and series history. I just wonder, series with 4 teams in 2020, nobody took it to the major leagues. What is wrong? That what have the Astros done that nobody else has done? Let's jump over to the pitching side of the equation, guys, and started out really well. The first 4 games went really well, maybe with the exception of Odorizzi, but he was okay, right? He threw strikes, 66.7% strikes. He got a no decision, but it was a blowout, and the Astros won the game. The last 2 starts, Garcia and Framber's second start of the season, have not gone so well. 57.7% strikes for Garcia. He only went 4 innings. 53.3% for Valdez. He was all over the place. I missed the first part of this game, but my son told me that's what he said. I said, it's 1-0. Oh, and he said, yeah, Framber is all over the place. He only lasted 3 innings. Now, shortened spring training, we know that. They weren't going to go long anyways, except for like opening day when it was hard to take Framber out, right? He was doing so well. We know they're not going to go more than 5 or 6 innings, at least the first couple of starts. But 3 innings, I don't know. We were looking real good after 4 starts. 2 starts later, I'm starting to question the rotation. I don't know if it's everybody. Apparently not, because Clayton Kershaw's thrown a perfect game on 80 pitches through 7 innings before they took him out. But anyway, thoughts on the rotation early, Matt? We've only seen one of the pitchers twice, so I know it's really difficult to make any grand conclusions. But just thoughts on the early efforts of the rotation.
I mean, they're number 1 in the MLB in ERA. I'd say that's a little bit of a false number. They only have, I think 1 or 2 quality starts. They haven't been going very deep, but very encouraging, right? I mean, we know Verlander looked great. He kind of got the hard luck loss there. We had no offense. We gave him the Roger Clemens treatment where we couldn't help him out at all. But Odo did his job. I mean, he is what he is. Your Urquidy looked pretty solid, but then we got Framber and Luis. They're kind of like Two-Face. You spin the coin and they look great, or they're all over the place. I guess Framber needs to pretend it's Game 5 up in Fenway like he was last year, and he was terrific. I don't get it, but I mean, he at some point he is what he is. His walk rates, was he at 10%, 11%? He seems like he's always going to be up there. So it's like, perhaps that's just what he is.
Yeah, I made that argument last year when people were freaking about his walks. He's 4 per 9 innings for his career before last night. Obviously, somewhere still around there. 1 game's not going to move that a lot, but he didn't walk. I think he walked 1 in the first game, and so I was hopeful, but that's 1 game, and over the long term, he walks 4 guys per 9 innings, and that's what he is. I think that's what he is. Now you're going to have a game where he doesn't walk 4 per 9, and you're going to have some where he walks more. Obviously, boy, that was genius. But but he walks guys, and he's going to walk guys, and when he doesn't walk guys, you should be happy. So
yeah.
That's what I'll say about Framber. Brian, we were talking about the rotation the first time through. We've only seen 1 pitcher twice, Framber Valdez, 1 really good outing, 1 not good outing. Odorizzi was Odorizzi. The first 4 games were really good. The last 2 with Garcia and Valdez, the second start, have been a little shaky. Can't make any grand conclusions from 6 starts. But your thoughts on the rotation early?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. You can't really, everybody's had 1 start apiece, so we're just going off of that, and everybody can have 1 good start. So, but with that said, certainly across the board they have done well. I don't know if that is necessarily due to some overwhelming pitching, or if it's necessarily, maybe it's due to the bats not being ready yet in the places that we played. So you take that as it is. But with that said, I mean, if you're looking at our collective ERA, we're in a pretty good spot with the starting rotation. But the couple of concerns that I have, there's a lot of good, but the couple of concerns I have is the length of the pitchers. Fromber, how many innings did he make it? 3, 4, 4 innings, 3 innings. Yeah,
He went 3.
he was 3, and then Garcia was
4, I think.
it was 4. So those two are you're counting on them to do a lot this year. And we talked about it before. Said this is kind of a trial year for the two of them, and neither of them can really can make it to a quality start. And some of that might be Dusty's doing, but I think for at least those two starts, I think it was also their own demise that they were struggling with some control and had a lot of pitches that they didn't need to do. So you question if that's another factor for the spring training that we didn't have, whether they were testing out some pitches, working on some pitches in some location, or if it's just that they, maybe have a little bit of a little regression that they just need to work through. But one thing is for sure, at least, looking at those two, they need to pitch more because our bullpen cannot take that much beating, especially when you're going almost back to back on that. So that's it's a lot of innings for our guys, and that's probably the weakest part of our staff is the bullpen. So if you're gonna have back to back games with them, doing a lot of innings, it's not going to be good for the rest of the guys. Going through that would make the Justin Verlander or Odorizzi start even more important, that they go more innings, going forward. But Odorizzi was serviceable, so that's good. He's he made it, and he was the lone ranger when it came to run support. So
that's serviceable is a good use of $7 million a year. Okay, sorry, Matt.
I just think for everyone but Verlander, we haven't really been tested yet, but we're going to be tested. We're playing the Blue Jays, I think, next week. I think we have 7 games against them in the next 15. So I mean, that's going to be the bellwether for some of these guys if they can really pick up their play early on in the season, because that's going to probably be the best offense in baseball. We're going to see them.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, we're going to call this your Diamondbacks Minute here. As a Clemson guy, I was totally torn when I saw Seth Beer get that hit last night, and then when I saw him score the winning run. The Astros fan of me was crushed. The Clemson and Seth Beer fan of me, just real happy he's getting a chance with the DH in both leagues. It was crazy him getting traded to Arizona. I was like, where the heck is he going to play? Is his career over? So that was real happy. I mean, I was real happy. Not real happy because the Astros lost, but I was happy for Seth. Let's put it that way. And we got all kind of Clemson players for the Rangers, so those poor guys are going to need some help. But Matt brought up a good little topic here for our pre-show talk. Brent Strom, pitching coach, Arizona Diamondbacks. He's got something for those guys, right, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, how many runs did the Astros score? They scored 3 runs.
Not many.
Not many. I mean, he probably has some institutional knowledge how to attack some of these guys, but hey, I mean, the Diamondbacks were not very good in pretty much all facets of the game last year, so it's good to see him just go hang out in the nice sun of Scottsdale and then occasionally, instill his pitching knowledge to the staff, and they're doing pretty good. So, I mean, that's me being optimistic in a painful Astros loss yesterday, 2 days ago. Yesterday. See, it feels like forever.
Just seems like it. I thought it was interesting too. And again, it's early. We don't know if it's the Astros bats or Brent Strom's influence or the pitchers in Arizona, but it was nice to see in a loss, right? I mean, the guy has a lot of knowledge. He's done everything the right way. He would stand up, the way he decided to move on. Good for him. He's earned it. I mean, he's 78 years old. I showed my kid a picture of him I got on a baseball card in like 1970 something. Totally different dude, of course. I mean, he was 25 versus 75 or whatever. But it was a lot of fun. I said, "This is Brent Strom." He's like, "What?" All he knows is the old man, right? Anyway, Brian, your take on Brent Strom with the Diamondbacks?
Yeah, we made him look good. I think that's the bottom line right there. It's little Stromy influence will go a long way for anybody, and I think we saw just hints of that last year. Wasn't it? I don't know if it was Bumgarner or one of the other ones that had a no sometime last year. So he puts his little stamp on that, and I'm sure he's going to make those guys that were pretty decent last year pretty good this year. They don't have a stellar rotation, but I think this also goes back to, and I'll continue my theme for the day. This also goes back to our Dusty Baker mixed up rotation. I mean, where you're going to have is Bumgarner going to be the guy that's really facing Valdez? Is that what it's supposed to be, or should it have been JV that on the hump there against Bumgarner? Might have been a different story. JV, I think, definitely would have won at least 6, if not 7, and then we have a different ball game. But with that said, Stromy he's got his team already humming, and he's only been there a couple months. So I think they could be a nice sleeper Cinderella, or the upset machine out there in the NL. So we'll see. That'll be fun to follow for Astros fans that won't hate the guys that left us, but like to see them be successful as long as they're not playing us, which definitely hurt yesterday.
I'm guessing they're in the wrong division to be a sleeper for the playoffs.
Yeah.
207.
Well, who knows? Maybe they'll pick up Bellinger after he gets DFA'd, and he can play center field for him.
Oh, this has been. And by the way, Brian, I don't think that was your theme for the day. I think that's a theme for a lifetime.
You don't say.
What a coincidence. Matt Kunkel, Brian Dunleavy, thank you guys so much. 6 games down, 156 to go, and then the playoffs. I'm calling it. Then the playoffs.
Go Stros. Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to you guys next week. Appreciate you.
All right. See ya.